Good morning to the North Americans and Canadians. Hi to everyone else on our side. Just a short insight, and thanks to Andy and Ferraris. Brilliant presentations, especially on what are type 2s and type 1A, Bs and things like that.
Okay, Tanya's going to move you, is that right, Tanya?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so when I was at Letseng in 2006, Letseng discovered the promise, and Keith Whitelock and John Harton were very keen to see where the promise would actually be ranked, and that's how the list started, and obviously has grown and grown. What constitutes the list? Well, there must be some evidence, and with these, especially the older stones, there's lots of information that's obviously been missed and whatever. So we try and get as much information as possible. I believe there should be a distinction between gem and industrial diamonds. And of course, there should be a starting point. Originally we started at 300 carats, but so many stones have been discovered recently that are huge. And then there's another question, that long discussions with Prof. Steve Haggerty, should Carbonados be included in my list? Not. Thanks. You can go, Tanya, thanks. Okay, so some basics of the list. The original list just had a one-pager, which was just all the biggest, but we've started breaking it up into different areas in terms of gem or whites or yellows and browns, etc., etc. So there are many pages in the list, and you'll see as we go along. Time doesn't allow us to get too involved with the list, but after the course, I will arrange with Tanya and John to everybody that's on the course that's interested to provide them with a proper list, an updated list. And then just looking on the left of that picture is a beautiful light brown Saroa from the fantastic Kairo Mine. That's 472 carats. Could it have been 500? We have these problems. Sometimes diamonds do get damaged. Okay, so in the world of diamonds, bigger is better. And we've always said that. And if you look at that wonderful photograph, including the diamond, it's really the most stunning stone bought by De Beers in Mabuji Mine in the old Zaire or Democratic Republic of Congo. De Beers and Steinmetz shaped it into this incredible 200 carat pair, and it just illustrates the whole world of these clipper diamonds. Bigger is better, and that's a beautiful D-color flawless stone. What started it all? Well, many centuries ago, of course, these big stones came out of India. The Koino came out at 793 carats. It's a beautiful 105 carat now. Just an incredible stone. And then followed by the 17th century, the Orlov. A lot of history in this stone. It's been called the Great Mughal as well. 787, huge stone, followed by Tavernier. Lots of history, lots of interesting points, lots of debate over the stone. Was the Orlov really the Mughal? But most historians believe it was, and I follow that. And then, of course, what changed it all? We had the big stones in Brazil and India and whatever. And then, of course, the South African diamond fields arrived, and these huge stones came out, 995 carat Excelsior. But then, of course, in 1905, that huge Cullinan came out, and it just obliterated any record that was there. I don't think it could be comprehended then. I think even to this day, I don't think we can really comprehend something that size. Big question, would we ever find anything bigger than the Cullinan? I think many people do doubt it, but you've got these large circuits, recovery circuits now. You've got this fantastic XRT X-ray technology. You still have Cullinan, you've got Karowe, you've got Letseng, Zhuaneng, possibly even Arapa. And then, of course, Steve Weatherall's Le Kapa, the Lulu project, and Matai. You never know, eh? That's what started it all, this magnificent stone. And we've seen this picture time and time again. Unfortunately, there are very few quality photographs of this given the timing. And the stone was gifted to King Edward. The two main stones anyway, Star of Africa 1 or the Great Star of Africa. at 530 carats, quite incredible. And then the lesser star, the Cullinan 2, weighs 317 carats. Just this huge stone. I mean, can you imagine 621 grams? You know, if you take just a tub of margarine, for example, you know, 4 inches or 2.5 inches by 2 inches, just incredible. There's been a bit of work done on how big the Cullinan could have been. Wilson suggested that it could have been about 8,300 carats. In my studies of the model, and a few of my co-workers, we believe that it was rather around about 6,000 carats. But be that as it may, it's still a huge diamond. And of course, that's a great star. Just the most incredible stone. I had the privilege in having a private audience in the Tower of London with the commander of the guard, and it was out the scepter because they were having it repaired. And it's just the most incredible diamond in the world to view. So I was very lucky and spoiled then. And if you take it 1,063 carats out of the Cullinan, just a huge yield. It's quite amazing. Okay, so this is what the basic list looks like. Very simple, straightforward ranking, a name for it, the carat weight, when were they discovered, what country, what type is it, seeing that we've been through all these types, and then of course color and type in terms of industrial or cleavage, etc. And there's two, the next slide is the same, going up to 59 on my list. There isn't really time to go through it now, but once the students or who's ever interested get it, they can actually go through themselves and just see in terms of size or in terms of year, and we'll go into that a bit later in the show. So some stats there, you know, it's just quite amazing when you look at that. There's only 5 stones that have been discovered over 1,000 carats. I suppose if you included the Sergio, the big Carbonado, but I don't really include that. And if you think that Cullinan was 3,100 and the next biggest, the Sewela, is 1,700, there's still this huge gap to cover. And then just some stats on how many stones there are between 900 and 999 carats. But the most important stat really for me is that since 2015, Botswana has produced 10 of the 17 largest recovered in that short time, and Kairo 9 out of 17, just quite amazing. And again, we go back to Andy's presentation where you look at most of the stones are from Africa. And then why do India have so few? Why doesn't Russia and Canada have so few? So some good questions for the geos there. Because the new kid on the block, the giant is Sewela, just the most amazing stone at this huge 1,700 carats. It looks like a piece of board, but I have seen photographs. We're showing the amount of light in the stone, and I think we'll still be surprised once the stone is actually polished and take away the black outer, which you'll see in the next slide. So it was sold to Louis Vuitton, and HB in Antwerp will be polishing it. And obviously they're spending a lot of time in mapping it. It's very difficult with the coating to actually see what's exactly inside. But I believe that they will peel it, if that's the right term, and slowly work away until they see exactly what is inside, which is something quite amazing. And what we're seeing with the Kairo, that a lot of these giants are actually lower quality diamonds. This stone is what we call a cleavage. It's very cracked, but there are definitely pieces of gem material within that. And I think if you had a strong light behind that, you'd probably be able to see. So the stone will be broken up and the polishable pieces will be taken out. The next question is the stone actually type 2A, the material that will come out? And then, of course, the Lesedi, just the most incredible stone, probably as celebrated as the Cullinan, just an incredible diamond. Interesting that it was found very soon after Lucara put in their Tomra. Just absolutely amazing. And then, of course, bought by Graf with the most incredible 300 carat emerald to come out of it. All very nice with their own certificates. If you go to the next slide, there were 66 stones cut out of it, and everyone has got a unique number and a special certificate from Graf and by the GIA, quite celebrated. I think any lady would love to be able to hold something like that. And then the surprise was the big unnamed De Beers, just incredible stone. I think most of the geos watching this will agree with me that they've been waiting for a big one to come out as Zhuaneng. And obviously the De Beers XRT machines are working just fine, looking at the results. It's an amazing diamond. It's the biggest diamond that De Beers have announced in many, many years. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the dates. The millennium in 1990, the golden jubilee in 85, and the centenary in 86. So De Beers hasn't had a extra ultra large stone for a long, long time. This stone is a really giant, and 73 millimeters long is just amazing. Thanks, Tanya. One of the next big clavages from the Kairo Mine at 998. Lovely photo from Dr. John Armstrong, just with a suite of mostly clippers around it. Just the gem content from the Kairo Mine is just absolutely amazing. And as per the previous large clavage, they will break this up and they will polish out what I believe will be type 2 pieces as well. I think one of the older stones, one of the famous stones that came from the Jaggers Mine, absolutely incredible stone. Very interesting for me because it's actually a G color, owned by Muad, the jewelers now. And it's a G color. And the interesting thing for me is that it's not very seldom that we ever get a G color in the type 2As. So I'm wondering if it's a type 1AB, but unless we get the stone, we wouldn't know. Also, one of the oldies, one of everyone's favorite stones, the Star of Sierra Leone, just incredible, beautiful. And I think you can see the scale with the president, the former president, holding the diamond. This is still the largest alluvial diamond ever found. Then, of course, Letseng found this fantastic monster of a stone, absolute beautiful stone. Some incredible photographs by Jem in Antwerp. I've held this stone. It is just the most magnificent stone. Next slide, you can see some more different views of it. It's just incredible. When you think of $40 million, it's huge. And that's what the Clipper diamonds, I think, are all about, is this huge value, beautiful diamonds. Then also, unusual stone is the biggest colored diamond ever found. Huge piece. I mean, just the polish, just 407 carats, just absolutely incredible. Lovely color. It actually appears more brown, but the GIA has given it fancy brownish yellow. So it's still regarded as a yellow diamond. The necklace is valued at 55 million US. So quite intriguing. Then back to another list where I've taken the 30 largest diamonds ever found, looked at them in terms of color and in terms of type. And later when you get the list, you can have a good look for yourself. But just a quick glance at the list, overwhelmingly type 2As. Okay, the Cullinan Heritage, magnificent stone. Love this photo from Petra with the broken pieces, well, pieces that were found at the same time as that. Were they part of it? You can be the judge. But again, you know, the huge value, 35.3 million bought by Chow Tai Fook. And on the next slide, you'll see the magnificent jewelry that was made out of it. Centerpiece is 104 carat D flawless round. Just the most amazing. Okay, back to the list again. The white type 2s. Again, you can see mostly African and just the sheer size at the top. And of course, you come in with the Lesedi and the De Beers diamond, 1,000 odd carats each, just amazing. And then if you go to the next slide, we've joined a list where we put the yellows and the browns together. And if you think there's 59 diamonds on the main list, only 13 are yellow and brown. And there are a few, I know John Bristow's always interested in the biggest octas. If you look at number 8, the Fenta diamond was a big yellow octahedron from the Northern Cape in South Africa. And then just looking at this, the clavage and industrial list put together, obviously topped by the Sewelô. But if you look at 4 and 5, those are 2 industrial stones. There's an unnamed Russian stone, very little information about it, but 888 huge bought. Russians very seldom produce anything over 300 carats. So it's quite amazing that they recovered that. Then one of my favorite stones that I used to play with, I suppose you could say, when I still worked at De Beers, the 616 is just the most amazing stone. I believe it's a type 1B. It is a fancy yellow, the biggest fancy yellow in the world. It has many inclusions, and De Beers decided they would not sell it or polish it because it's the largest octahedral diamond in the world. Of course, you can see it is slightly resorbed on the edges, so it does have a dodec part to it, but still mostly octahedral. And of course, you can still see it in Kimberley at the Open Mine Museum. My favorite diamond, and one of the diamonds I worked with when I was still with De Beers, Golden Jubilee, is just the most incredible stone, 755 carats, found in the then Premier Mine. Just absolutely amazing color, and the biggest brown type 2 ever discovered. Just incredible color, just absolutely amazing. And then just for interest's sake, there will be a separate sheet for Carbonados on my list, but they won't be included. But just interesting is from Professor Haggerty, 4 of the 5 largest diamonds found in Brazil were Carbonados. And if you think that the Sergio was 60 odd carats bigger than the Cullinan, it's a huge diamond. Unfortunately, it was sold to a London broker who sold it on to tool makers, and the stone was crushed up into 3 to 6 carat bits for specialized industrial tool bits because the Carbonado is so hard. And then the biggest one, which is subject to debate, is the Spirit of Grasonio, which is found in the Central African Republic. Still some debate on whether it is a Carbonado gem. You can move on, please, Tanya. Okay, so there's a list. Not much is there. Those most of what I could find. But interesting stones. If you look at the next slide, it shows the Enigma, which is a polished Carbonado, which is sold for over $4 million. Possibly about 800 carats in the rough, so quite a serious diamond. Unfortunately, there's no information as to where it was found and when it was found, but I think it's the Central African. And then the next slide will show the Spirit. Just an amazing diamond, polished in the Mogul fashion. The older people in the audience will recognize the tennis player and his wife. Mrs. Henry Lecan, she modeled the stone for Grasonio, but absolutely magnificent. I'm not sure if the ring is the right idea, but just to show this, the sheer size of the stone. Okay, so this is the list from 2000, going on size, the biggest stone since the year 2000. The list is just 2 that I've drawn up where I show that by year and by size. And again, you can see Botswana very prominent. If you then go, sorry, Tanya, one back. If you then go from a year perspective, 2002 was when the Win was found. Then the big Angolan Star of Stanley Ho. And then there was a 3-year hiatus, and all of a sudden the Lesotho Promise was found. And then you can just see how all these years are compressed and how many stones were found from 2006 when Letseng opened. And then, of course, with Karowe opening shortly after that, plus with the modern technology of the XRT systems, etc. This is just a further extension of that, where to show from the year 1970 how few stones there were until you got to the year 2002. Again, a small hiatus, and then all of a sudden, with the startup of the Letseng mine, you had all these incredible stones coming out. Followed in 2015 with all these stones that came out of the Karowe mine. So back to the Cullinan mine. Wonderful diamonds. Just a nice photo from Petra with the 200 carat next to the legacy. Lovely, very clear pictures of beautiful clipper diamonds. Then back to one of the older stones, one of my favorite photos for diamonds. When I was in the factory learning how to split the stones, that's how we did it. And then on the stones that had many cracks, you had to mark it out and label it, and then try and work the polished yield from that. So fascinating photo for me. Of course, in those years, there was no Saurine or Galaxies and that. A beautiful diamond. Then the second biggest stone found in Angola, or second biggest documented, I should say. This is found by Lukapa in the Lulu project. Fascinating mine. We know they're very, very close to the kimberlite. All the large stones that I've studied from the Lulu project have no transport abrasion or any wear on the diamonds. So the stones haven't moved very, very far. So I think the kimberlite will be very, very close. Beautiful diamond, polished in Dubai, 22.5 million. Again, it's got to be a clipper. Then just following up on Andes, on these Cullinan-like large inclusion, pure, irregular and resorbed stones, just absolutely amazing. There's a list of the top 24 white stones. The chances of them all being clipper diamonds, I think, is very, very strong. And perhaps Evan or Stephen or one of those would be interested in having a go at those. Of course, we can't get them to examine them closely. We can only work off photographs. But I would imagine that the majority of those 24 would actually be clippers. And I think you might have seen this photo in a previous presentation. But again, just to look at the models, I think the big one in the center, it's 91 carats. I think Farnes Verleuen called it that shape a potato. But you can see some of them are very, very blocky. Some are elongated, and all are irregular. And then occasionally you will find an octahedral face, and you never get type 2s that are octahedral. But I have seen octahedral type 2s where they've actually been broken along the octahedral faces. Okay, then also one of my favorite stones, because I worked on it with my mentor for many years, Gabby Torkowski, an incredible diamond, just polished by the stunning team led by Gabby, some of the top English polishers, and then Worm Davy Duplessis did the final brilliant earring. Absolutely magnificent stone. If you look at those dimensions, it was also just a super, super stone. A lot of work went into it because it was a highly stressed diamond. And I'm sure the students can do a bit of research on it and find out about it. Amazing stone. We know that De Beers has sold the stone. They don't talk about these things, but apparently it was sold for somewhere in the region of 100 million. And that's huge money. and also one of my favorites because I was there when it was found. The promise found in the satellite, like most of the big clippers in Letseng, just started this new era of large stone discoveries with Letseng being reopened, followed by the Kairo, followed by this new technology. We're now seeing it with Lulu and with Zhuaneng, this amazing technology which is helping us find these big stones and not crushing them. Graf paid 12.6 million for it in 2006, which is a long time ago, and made this incredible necklace. And this was the first piece where all the stones that were polished from the stone were put into one piece of jewelry. I believe that Graf was looking for about 78 million for the necklace. So again, huge money from this beautiful clipper diamond. Okay, then looking at some of these Letseng giants, obviously all clippers, just amazing, especially having been at the mine when some of these were found, like the Lesedi and the Star, wonderful diamonds. And again, you can see that some of them are very, very blocky indeed, and some are just slightly elongated, but all D-color material, amazing stuff. And then another stone I've worked on was a wonderful diamond to work with, bought by Graf. This was the Mayor Prosperity, which was found in the first few days that they did their trial mining. Absolutely miracle of nature. This just incredible, very, very flat diamond, but Graf polished 102 carat pair out of it. Just absolutely amazing, beautiful stone. But this is an E color, not a D color. But yeah, absolutely beautiful stone. In the Peace diamond, very interesting, found by artisanal diggers. Quite a history to go with it. They had an auction in Sierra Leone, and I think the winning or the highest bid was 7.5 million, which was rejected by the government and the owners of the stone. And when they eventually did sell it through Rappaport's auction, Graf paid 6.5 million. I think this is possibly the only non-clipper diamond of all the giant diamonds that Lawrence Graf has bought. It's light yellow. I think there'll be some interesting pieces to come out of this. Then just a list on the non-African countries, obviously India, Brazil, and Russia and Canada. Again, not many. If you look at 15 diamonds out of the list of 59, which shows how it's biased towards Africa, and I'm sure Andy and them will come up a reason of why we have so few diamonds from the north, especially Canada and Russia. And then on the right, the beautiful wind diamond was found in the Amazon alluvials. Beautiful stone, polished a 230 carat pair. I think it's the second largest pair in the world. And then quite a busy slide with all the African stones, 44 out of the 59, just amazing. And of course, South Africa and Botswana really appear very, very strongly on this list. I would imagine that Botswana is now on about 7 of the biggest, or no, 10 of the biggest, and South Africa on 17. And I'm sure with the rate of recovery with Kairo and now Zhuaneng, I think that list will change quite quickly, unless Cullinan comes up with some more giants. Okay, then we get to the most difficult part of trying to do a list like this. Is there's information out there of stones that were found, but there's no information, and a lot of it is hearsay. that, you know, there was an 800 character that they found in Angola, or this stone that De Beers produced, or whatever. But there's no solid evidence that these stones ever existed. And for example, if you take, there's a 700 character which was supposed to be a light blue. There's only one reference to it, and I've spoken to many of the diamantaires in Antwerp, and they don't believe that that stone ever existed. But again, if you go into the historical side, there were big stones. A lot of them were the borts and these poor quality clavage stones, and they were just never ever recorded, or any information was written about it. So if you concentrate on these points, that we know that there were these large stones in India and Brazil centuries ago. It was smuggled out of the, stolen from the temples and smuggled out of the mines, and even from the African mines as well. Many of these industrial pieces were never ever recorded. There might have been a note in the mines record, but there was no other record of it. And once it was polished, broken up, there's just no further record. And of course, to this day, we know that there are diamonds being broken on the mines. And when you have these giants, there's a strong chance that they will be crushed. And we won't even have evidence of it in certain cases. And then, of course, these very old records, which are referred to here on the left, it does need follow-up. Somewhere there must be something written about it. But that's will take a bit of time to do all the research for that. And then I'd just like to thank Mrs. Debbie Barn, Drs. John Ward, John Armstrong, Dr. Mike DeWitt, and Dr. Paddy Lawless for all their help and their support over the years, and also helping me keep the list going. They're very keen on all these large stones. And then special thanks to Brandon, the brain from GEM, and Dr. John Armstrong for those extra photographs that they said to me. And then, of course, I've always dedicated my list to my mentor, Dr. Derek Robinson. Worked with him for many, many years in De Beers. A wonderful, wonderful man. And then once the list is sent out, all the references used in this presentation will be on the list once it gets sent out. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray. That was tremendous.
Thanks. Went a bit faster than I anticipated.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fascinating world of these large stones, and this whole correlation with the clipper diamonds just add an extra dimension to this list as well.
Okay, Andy, do you want to drive the questions?
John, may I ask a question to Ray?
Yeah, go for it, Mike.
Hi, Farnas.
No, it's Mike DeWitt. Ray, may,
hey, Mike, sorry.
May I suggest, Ray, that with these blue diamonds being so incredible, special, that you start a new list just with blue diamonds and see how far back you can get with that one.
Yes, I do actually have a basic list, but I haven't updated it, especially with after those fantastic Cullen and Latapa blues.
Okay,
So, yeah,
that would be great to see that as well. That's
on the menu. John and James Campbell have a request that I do some research on the large alluvial octahedrons that have been found, and that's also on the list. But it's a time issue, of course.
You got the weekends.
Yeah, thanks. I'll have to come and visit you.
Ray, a question from me. On your lists, what is the proportion of kimberlite diamonds versus alluvials in this list? And to a further question, in the ones recovered from kimberlites, do you see in the photos or the ones that you've personally looked at evidence of diamond breakage or plant breakage?
Yes. Yes, there were, yeah, quite a few of them have shown breakage, like the photo of the 470. The very interesting one, of course, is the Sewello and the Constellation. There is a paper on it, and I'm not sure that it's been finalized by De Harens, where there's a possibility that it was one big diamond of 2,400 carats and broke where the diamond was zoned. The Constellation is a type 1AB diamond, while the Lesedi is still a type 2A diamond. So there might have been a weakness where the zoning was. The diamond, the Constellation was certainly found with 3 other pieces, and you could see that in De Harens' paper. So yes, it does still happen, and I'm sure in the past, we know that there have been quite a few of these large stones broken, but once it's broken, it's done. It can't go on the list and say, well, it could have been this.
Ray, you mentioned that the 616 octahedron had inclusions.
Yeah.
Are they clear enough to see whether they're eclogitic or periditic or?
From what I can remember, I only observed sulfides in that stone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks, Ray.
So that would be that would be interesting.
Go ahead. Yeah, there's a question from one of the students who sort of dropped out for a few minutes about the black diamonds or carbonados. Why don't you just quickly recap on that for them?
Okay, so the Carbonados, and I should read Prof. Steve Haggerty's paper on that, are deemed to be extraterrestrial. And that's why I haven't included them on my list of mantle-derived diamonds. So again, they are very hard industrial diamonds, but some of them have an inner core, which is totally black. If you saw the photo of the Enigma, has got a sort of grey, browny sort of streak to it. It's not pure black like the Grasonio is.
But,
so
but
there's
quite
a lot of,
I mean, quite a lot of those black diamonds, even smaller ones, are black because they've got, lots of black inclusions or sulfides and stuff like that.
Yeah. Look, black diamonds are actually, black diamonds, as in fancy black diamonds, are actually very, very rare. And that's why they are so expensive. And when you start looking at a 1 or 2 carat fancy black diamond, you could be talking $2,000 a carat. So, but they are rare. All my years, the last 5 years, looking at all the alluvial productions, for example, I've come across about 4. So they're pretty rare.
Okay. Right, and just to throw sort of a very broad comment question into the mix, and it's for you and Andy, and I see Herman's on the presentation and all the other petrologists. I mean, it's fascinating. If you look at, these big diamonds, I hardly saw any mention of big diamonds out of the Northern Hemisphere. So if you go India, Africa, obviously, and then Brazil, all in Gondwana, these old Britonic areas. And Aussie, as always, the Australians are the odd one out in this case. But just these amazing number of big diamonds, whereas, and we talked about it, I think yesterday or the day before, Ray, I think
yes.
Grib in Russia has produced a few big diamonds, but, very, very few others. If you look at the Siberian pipes, although I remember early on Barry Hawthorne, and I think Steve said the same thing too, there was a lot of breakage there where they used rod mills. But, any comments on that?
Well, the interesting thing is that having looked at a number of the group productions, and especially when they've had their type 2s, beautiful stones, and no reason why they shouldn't be clippers as well, but it's quite rare. But they actually produce some big stones between 100 and 300 carats. So there's no reason why they couldn't come up on the list. Why the the main Russian mines to the north, what's it,
East.
north east, why they haven't produced anything of note is anyone's guess. I'm sure maybe Herman could help us with that. But even Canada, Diavik has produced a couple of marvelous type 2s, which could quite easily be clippers. But, if you take in 15 plus years, they've only produced 2 or 3 type 2 diamonds. Where did they come from? Was it just a different pulse, or where did they come from? Herman, any comment on that?
In the case of Diavik, those big stones were actually accidental recoveries. They would have been crushed if it wasn't for their shape. So, the industrial processing that was going on at Diavik, and I don't think Diavik has installed an XRT circuit yet, because it's about to close. So those big stones were definitely accidental recoveries.
Yeah, but again, if any of them were broken, and I worked there for 2 years, and in my 2 years, we only found one, which was a 78 carat, the most incredible, could have come from Cullinan even. And all the time, I've never seen any other type 2A pieces, but there was the Foxfire, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Okay, so they are there. It's just, not very even.
Yeah, just so random though. And again, if you look at the list, only 2 stones are from Russia, of the large stones, the 888 bought, and then that 400 carat Mackel. There's nothing like a clipper. And then of course the only one from Canada is the fancy yellow. So,
Ray, sorry, I had 2 different questions for you. The one is a request that you actually, on your list, you actually specify the source, not just the country, because it turns out that it's quite important. Maybe you didn't show that column. Are you actually recording the actual source if you can?
Yeah, I will do that. Thanks for that. The information is there. Some of them, of course, it comes from Kimberley. Which of the 5 Kimberley mines produced, so some of it is a bit difficult, but I will do that and specify the actual mine.
Yeah, because that's actually, from a genetic point of view, and whether it's associated with megacrust or other bits and pieces, actually important information. The second question was, if you had to estimate the annual proportion of annual rough diamond trade, let's say it's $8 billion annually rough trade, maybe that's sort of an estimate number. If you had to estimate the proportion by value, that these large stones, let's say $2 million a piece rough, is in the trade on an annual basis, what percentage would that be in your estimation?
Starting at what size though, Herman? Starting at 100 carats or?
Well, let's say the individual pieces are selling at $2 million a stone, stones that are selling for $2 million or more.
Yeah, I'd say it's quite a small percentage actually. If you're talking Letseng, and if you're talking Karowe, totally different thing. If you look at, for example, the huge output of carats of the Zhuaneng mine, even 1,000 carats a stone, will obviously make its presence felt, but it's going to be very small in the annualized revenue.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's an interesting question, Herman. If you actually look at, average Botswana production, if you believe it, and I think, the numbers are reasonably okay compared to, say, Russian production, there's quite a significant difference. And I suspect, we over the last couple of years have done some work in Botswana, and I think we underestimate, and maybe I'm talking, you the expert, Ray, but I think we underestimate that the sheer quality of joining. If you look at a run of mine, you know, sawtooth parcel of Jwaneng. I mean, it's just amazing compared to, you know, just about every other kimberlite that you look at.
Yes, for sure. No, absolutely. I'm not privy to that information, but if you had to look on a two different mines, for example, where we find all these clippers for Letseng and Korowe, your special stones that you're referring to would probably account for 70% of the revenue.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, there
totally
you go.
different.
Yeah.
But they are small productions compared to like the Jwaneng. It would be very difficult once you take all the small diamonds produced by Jwaneng and all the industrials and the rejections and the clavage, it's going to pull that price right, that value right down. But yeah, interesting question.
Okay. Right, we want to keep moving, but we also have a question here from Bill saying, Ray did not answer the question about roughly the ratio of alluvial to kimberlite recoveries for the diamond.
Yeah, sorry, we got a bit sidetracked now, Craig. Probably it's 1 in 10 is alluvial. So that'll come fit back in with Herman's question of having the precise location. Look, many of them, like the big Sierra Leone stones, were all found in the Dominco alluvials until recently. So there's what 4 stones already with the Woi and the star. Yeah, it would be interesting. And there's a couple of the South Africans, like the Fenta was an alluvial. So that'll be the next project, is to tidy up the list and have this information on a more definite basis for you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm being a bit pedantic, having worked on the alluvials. I mean, if we recorded all the big stones sold out of Kimberley and the tender houses, you know, and from say Hopetown to Douglas to Prieska, and Mike will have some info, you know, the stuff that even came out of the Vaal River section. I think it'll be a fascinating study.
Well, if you take the alluvials from 50 carats to 300 carats, is a fascinating, and I mean, you know, the dollar per carat is just quite incredible. Eh?
Yeah.
And what about Namibia? I mean, Southwest Africa. What's the contribution from there, from the coastals?
In terms of large stones?
Yeah, there are not very many. There's not many big stones, Bill. I mean, there have been some big. There are a couple of. Ray will again be aware of them. They're not sort of talked about big stones out of the lower Orange River.
Yeah, well,
The biggest...
we do know that there's a couple of plus 100 carats have come down the Orange River.
The biggest stone on the west, the biggest stone in Namibia was 211, I think, and something. And this biggest stone on the Namaqua coast was also just over 200.